Shuen,
Yes.
okay, you are certainly a good friend of all Hong Kong citizens, as far as I'm concerned.
As far as you're concerned, yes.
Okay, there's a reason for I said that. Simply because you had spent a conscientious amount of time actually to evaluate what is in front of us. Okay, and you had come to a conclusion which shocked me. Okay, and I'm sure, as to me, you're a futuristic guy. You actually look philosophically and practically and realize you're heading nowhere in Hong Kong.
Well, I made a projection, yes.
Yeah, you made a projection, you add on it. You had all my respect, because there are people who can plan and philosophize things. They never put their words into action. You're one of the few, okay, as big as I am leaving Hong Kong, for Christ's sake, okay? Everybody I want to go to Hong Kong. You say, I am leaving. The reason is not because I don't make enough money, because there is problem I cannot help any further. All right, if I got that right, this book, this policy agenda, just recently come to view, and I wonder how many people have read this in Hong Kong.
Well, for all of you who are not familiar with Hong Kong, the policy address is sort of like the State of the Union that's delivered by the President of the United States. It lays out the policy objectives, in fact, even policy details for the upcoming foreseeable future of a certain administration. And this particular policy address, delivered a couple of days ago, is going to be our Chief Executive C.Y. Leung's last one, well, actually second last one, the last one for practical purposes, before his election.
Well, yeah,
before his election. Well, what, I don't even know what it's called. What's that called?
Well, it's a pseudo election, but according to C.Y. Leung last night on public TV, and he had claimed that if he's not chosen to be the chief executive the way it was, okay, nevertheless, he thinks he's still the most popular.
He would have won if there was genuine universal suffrage in 2012.
Oh, come on.
That was the exact quote he said.
Yeah.
I don't actually disagree with it.
Why?
I don't actually.
What makes him qualified to say such as that so?
Because if you were to look back to 2012, that was at the crest of the left-wing socialism bubble in Hong Kong, and out of all the three candidates, he was the only one that ticked all the boxes, and was also more enthusiastic in social spending. So if he by simply seizing the most vocal opposition support, which is the socialists in Hong Kong, the progressive Democrats, he would have won. I don't actually dispute that. So, people get elected all the time. The entire point of genuine universal suffrage is to have the opportunity to throw them out of office if they, one, fail to meet expectations, or two, perform poorly. So, I don't doubt for a fact that he would have won. In fact, even today, I still joke that I'm still in Henry Tang, his opponent in 2012's camp. I'm in Henry Tang's camp.
So what you're saying that
I wasn't
he's qualified to say so?
Oh, of course, I don't dispute the fact that he could have won.
Okay. All right.
So we'll start from there. But this particular policy address, it's very thick. You can see the font size is not very big, and he read through the entire book. That's the entire point of the policy address. It was about an hour and a half long. So I understand that there was many policies laid out, and led to many questions from the good doctor here.
Well, questions I have. I want to ask you specifically as an analyst. Number one, okay, when it comes, let's forget whether you have read this or have you not, where other people read it. The gist of the whole thing is, this is our part. This money belongs to Hong Kong. This is the way we're going to spend it. Okay, my problem, okay, is not with how you're going to take care of the elders and how you're going to take care of future doctors. Okay, my question on the main ballparks from the economic point of view. I want to know, okay, for example, in this policy agenda, okay, could you pinpoint to us, will there be any money left?
I'm not going to be that cynical because ultimately in government spending, the chief executive still has to go through our financial secretary, John Zhang, and he has been a strict guardian of our public expenditure.
Right.
In the sense that he abhors spending that is recurring. He basically stopped universal pension in its tracks, and he also he's more lenient towards one-off spending, and hence over the years you've seen Hong Kong indulge in many rounds of I would call wasteful infrastructure projects. That is probably why. So if you say any money left, I'm still optimistic. Even with this particular policy address, there will be money left. But I would say that this is a very rare case in which we might have seen the incentives align between Beijing, our chief executive's own political career, and the future of the people of Hong Kong.
Are you saying that in Chinese usually we said 企人將佢企言也善? Could that be what?
My Chinese is not good enough to understand that.
Oh, okay. Well, the guy that would be a bygone soon. Okay?
Well, actually, no. Well,
so he left a few good words.
Well, I'm grudgingly. I'm not going to compliment him. Of course not. But I would say that this might be a rare case in which the incentives are aligning. If you watched the previous episodes done between me and the good doc here, you would have known that I laid out my hypothesis that Hong Kong's way of life, ever since the fall of the British Empire, since the 1940s, right, has been maintained because of the active protection from the Chinese Communist Party.
Right.
The highest powers.
Yeah, for those of you who are not familiar with it, please
click here.
Yeah, click here. eETV. We had it well explained. In fact, for all students, all people who pay any attention to Hong Kong, including your future, it's to your benefit to click here to read what had been said by this man here.
The previous episode, I said that in the Korean War, we exhibited with our free port policy that even with the United Nations embargo on China, on Red China, Hong Kong acted as a import-export smuggling port for lots of resources, including medicine, clothing, some would say even munition. And we shipped a lot of this stuff into China, and therefore the Chinese Communist Party realized that with the existence of Hong Kong as a British colony, there is no value to Hong Kong as part of China. Only as a British colony with a three-part policy does it actually help the one-party rule of China. And when it came to Deng Xiaoping, he did not introduce one country, two system because of an altruistic reason. Because he felt that only with Hong Kong as a capitalist common law jurisdiction would it help with the economic reform and solve the economic weakness of China that was becoming a national security threat. And with time is being now, China's economy being what it is now, Hong Kong is no longer needed, and therefore the highest powers within the Chinese Communist Party no longer pays the same amount of attention to Hong Kong, and therefore the frontline government officials sent here and the local communist proxies are running wild. Even if the Chinese Communist Party's highest powers right now wants to keep Hong Kong as is, wants to respect one country to system, but because they're no longer paying the necessary attention, the constant attack on one country to system no longer has that shield provided. So that was the thesis. And why I said this particular policy address aligns the incentives of all three. I would say that what the people of Hong Kong wants is of course a continuation of one country two system.
Right.
What C.Y. Leung wants is the further continuation of his political career. Right? He only has one master, which is Beijing. So therefore he wants to serve Beijing.
Well, that's given. There's no right or wrong. That's the way it's going
That's
to
the
be.
way it is, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, why did I say the incentives are aligned? Because in this particular policy address, the phrase Belt and Road, or in Chinese, 一帶一路, was mentioned 42 times.
Yeah, you better explain that to us in more clearer terms. I had questions about that.
Yeah, go ahead. Belt and Road is a scheme in which, on the surface, is China being a good neighbor and lending money to neighboring countries with a lack of infrastructure and helping them build their infrastructure. Where with power stations, it could be highways, it could be telecom networks, all kinds of infrastructure projects. Okay, that is the idea on the surface. The reason why the Communist Party is pushing this, I mean, the Communist Party never do anything that doesn't do itself any good, right? So it's not really for an altruistic motive. It's because China currently suffers from massive overcapacity in all kinds of industries. Okay.
Right.
And the biggest problem with overcapacity is that these overcapacity was built with borrowed money from banks, and because these factories are idle, are not productive, and therefore these factories can't service their debts. I think it was Alexander Hamilton or William Jefferson that said that he fears bankers more than neighboring countries standing armies.
I think Jefferson.
Right? He fears bankers more than standing armies of neighboring countries as a threat to the republic, because all it takes is one banking crisis to really end your rule. If you went down to Jakarta in early 1997 and asked anyone on the streets of Indonesia how long would the Suharto regime stay in power for, they will look at you and they will give you a quizzical look and say they will be around forever. Even if the old man goes, his son or daughter will take over. And even if you follow up with the question, well, there's going to be a banking crisis in Indonesia coming, are you scared for Suharto? They will still shrug. Right? If you do the same experiment in China right now, ask anyone in China, including Hong Kong, how long do you think the Chinese Communist Party will stay in power for? And they will say forever. Right? That's the consensus, right? For the foreseeable future anyways, if not forever, right? But there is a banking crisis looming in China, and the Chinese leadership, for whatever fault they have, they are all very good students of history. They know that under one party, nothing ends one-party states. No matter if it's democratic, like it was in Japan in the late 1980s or early 1990s, whether it's Indonesia, where it's capitalistic and authoritarian, or whether it's the Soviet Union, where it's planned economy but also totalitarian, if there is a misallocation of capital leading to a fall in the return on these capital, and therefore these capital being destroyed, eventually the biggest threat would be to the ruling party itself. So therefore the number one priority for China, for the Chinese Communist Party, if they want to maintain control, is to solve the bad debt problem.
Of course.
And therefore, if the one Belt and Road scheme were to work, and if it does work, what would happen is that these countries that receive these aid and have the infrastructure built, hopefully would generate enough return from these infrastructure projects, liberate their economy, and make it as productive as possible to generate the return to repay back China. Because the Chinese government knows that within mainland China's borders, any additional unit of investment no longer generates the return in which it can service the debts and therefore prevent the bad debts from happening.
I see. Now this is the economic view on the so-called new beltway system.
Right.
Let's make it easy. It's just a beltway.
Well, it's not actually a beltway. It's simply a string of countries that was labeled as the Silk Road or the Maritime Silk Road, and therefore it looks like a belt. So the Belt and Road is actually just a graphical drawing of the areas involved. But at least that's the grand plan, to use the Belt and Road scheme to solve partly the bad debt situation in China and therefore protect the Communist Party, one-party dictatorship. So therefore, why did I say the incentives are aligned? Is because if Hong Kong can play a crucial part in solving this bad debt crisis, and therefore solidify the one-party rule in China, then the Chinese Communist Party's highest powers would then have the incentive to protect one country.
So your thesis earlier that Hong Kong is no longer that important now is important because of this.
We don't know yet. Because
so
even
there's a chance.
If you looked at the policy address and
right.
you know, the I don't know, maybe a third of it was on One Belt One Road.
Right.
Right. None of the schemes sound as if it's going to be the silver bullet.
Well, there are. It hits me very hard this time.
Right.
Okay, because I'm not an economist. I'm just a plain old scientist.
All right, but I'll give you.
Yeah.
You're a scientist. You're good with numbers, right? So I'll give you the numbers to scale.
Yeah.
Hong Kong has about the fiscal reserves. We don't have national debt. Over the years, we've accumulated a huge amount of fiscal reserves. Our fiscal reserves is about $1 trillion Hong Kong dollars. Okay?
Yeah, right.
1 trillion Hong Kong dollars.
Right.
The bad debts in China, with the most pessimistic estimate, is about 5 trillion US dollars. So it's about 44 trillion Hong Kong dollars.
Right.
So for all those people that says they're going to take our fiscal reserves to recapitalize their banks, forget it. Because 7 million people's fiscal reserves is not going to help 1.4 billion people's bad debts. We simply don't have enough money.
Yeah.
Even though we are like many times their wealth, right? We still don't have enough because we're only 7 million people. They have 1.4 billion. We're only 0.5% of the population, right? So we're only 1/44th. We only have 1/44th the capital.
So your thesis that Hong Kong is going to be peripherized?
I don't know yet. This is the tricky part.
Yeah.
Today I come up to this show not to make. I can't make this prediction because I can't see it myself. All the schemes that was announced by the chief executive does not go towards. I mean, it pays a lot of attention to Belt and Road, but I don't see it as a silver bullet to help the bad debt crisis. But at least Beijing understands that we are on it, right? It might not be effective, and to be honest, if we prove to be ineffective, it would seal our fate, because if we can't even help them on the one thing that we're supposed to be good at, which is financial markets.
No. Wait, I got to correct that. Not that you're wrong, okay? But I suspect, through my reading, Hong Kong is contributing to the whole scenario a little bit more than just finance, okay? And I think skill and technology still counts. That is what I suspect why the ITB is going to be around.
Well, if you talk about the know-how of building a highway, in fact, yes, Hong Kong people are known for building highways.
High rises as well.
High rises as well, but
reliable high rises.
If you talk about, let's take highway, because that was going to be one of the key types of infrastructure projects. There's a company in Hong Kong called Hopewell Holdings. Right. Hopewell Holdings was known very famously to have been one of the earliest highway construction companies in China. It was also an active construction company in places like Thailand prior to the 1997 Asian financial crisis. So we do have that know-how, but it's not going to be the know-how that I think is going to be the biggest contribution, because the mainland Chinese do have their own know-how. They will probably not give us that particular, because there is no point in trying to give us that contract, because they think they have the know-how. So our biggest contribution is going to be this. This is going to be the particular problem that China needs solving. Once the money is lent to these countries, sovereign governments, for them to build their infrastructure projects, right? They're going to build that infrastructure project, but who is going to make sure that it's going to be built on time? Maybe mainland China themselves. Fine. How is the Chinese government going to make sure that the loans given to these countries are going to be repaid on time? The risk management, the capital flow, the wiring of money, that is going to be the crucial role that I think Hong Kong is going to play.